right, here's a few news stories that caught my eye. The states are worrying about the origin of election software, and this is the ever-increasing federal interest in the supply chain. And so in New Hampshire, they hired somebody to write their election software, and it turns out there's really only one vendor, and they're not very reliable. And so they were kind of nervous about it. The firm had offshored part of the work to go outside the U.S., which they didn't know and they didn't really like. So they hired a security company to reverse engineer the software. And in there they found the Ukrainian national anthem. Forensic software found it in there. And they found use of open source code overseen by a Russian computer engineer convicted of manslaughter. And, quite a few disturbing things. They didn't find any actual evidence of wrongdoing, but they just found what everyone is very worried about, that if you look into the supply chain of the software we trust, a lot of it comes from really suspicious places, and why should you trust it? And people are getting more and more worried about this. So much that I think the military is now going to require a software bill of materials in all their software soon, and that's the beginning of the solution to this problem. Of course, it's not clear exactly what to do about a software bill of materials, and what we're really going to need is something like a constantly maintained database of which packages are dangerous that you should avoid, rating them like viruses or something. You need something like that, and it's all in the early stages of that. So CIO.com has an article about whether IT certifications are better than a college degree. This is probably an important issue for quite a few of the students here. Unfortunately, the answer is that it's not a clear answer. Some people prefer certifications, some people prefer degrees. It's going to depend on your company and so on, but there's a lot of discussion here that may be helpful to people. It points out a lot of points, so you might find some good things you want in there if you're in the position of having to make that decision. So the Biden administration has announced major actions against Russian efforts to influence the election. Now, one thing that I didn't find here, or in the official document that came with it, is a statement of what the Russians are trying to achieve in the election. Now, I would assume that Putin wants to put Trump back in, because Trump has made it very clear that on the first day he will just stop helping Ukraine and let Russia take over Ukraine, and he doesn't care. And that's what Putin wants. At least that's what it seems like. But what they say here, the actual evidence they found, is that RT, the Russian media state network that used to be regarded as a news source in America a few years ago, but it was exposed as an official Russian propaganda means, and it certainly is, hidden Russian government messaging. It wasn't even hidden very much. And so they found that they just have the 300-page affidavit. I saw some of this. It says they plant fake news stories to attack U.S. politicians supporting Ukraine and stoke tensions in U.S. society. And this is the thing about Russia. A lot of their propaganda is not obviously supporting one candidate over another. What it is just stoking division in America. They will just try to get people to be upset, try to stir up racism, stir up, just people, making people angry about anything, just to weaken us. Anyway, they're doing it again. They've been doing it all along. The Chinese are doing it too. A lot of people are doing it. And exactly what you're going to do about it is not clear. The Biden administration is trying to blunt RT's influence, and it's not quite clear what they're going to do. A sweeping set of actions, criminal charges against 2 nationals, sanctions against 10 people, and the seizure of 32 internet domains. So that's what they've done. I doubt that's really going to accomplish anything. But anyway, the problem is there's freedom of speech in America. You can disseminate propaganda. I think you can force foreign agents to be labeled as foreign agents, or at least they like to, but it's not clear how much good that does. If I look at Twitch, what days are you considering for the midterms and final week? All right, if you go to samsclass.info and you go to CCSF calendar, it's here. You go to the instructional calendar, and the midterm ends on the 18th of October, and finals begin on the 13th of December. So that's the location of midterm and finals. Fair enough. Anyway, so Cisco is getting in a lot of trouble. Cisco has a store. Now, I think this is for Cisco-themed merchandise. But anyway, their store got infected with a JavaScript credit card stealer. And this is a problem. it suggests their security practices are bad, and you can certainly determine that because they say it's a cosmic sting attack, and the cosmic sting attack comes from just not updating your web platform from a long time ago. This is from June, and so it's been like more than a month, and they're apparently more than a month behind on updating their stuff if they're getting attacked by this attack, and that's disturbing. This is not too surprising. I've heard nothing but really scary stories about Cisco security for years. This one I've heard for at least 5 years. Backdoor hard-coded admin accounts, again, in Cisco products. Obviously, a lot of their coders have this really old practice. You'll see it in the movie Tron. In the movie Tron, the guy's son knows how to get into his system because dad always leaves a secret backdoor account with a password I know in every system. There's a time when people did this, but that time was 20 or 30 years ago, and Cisco engineers are still doing it. It's pretty ridiculous. So they have another Cisco product with a secret backdoor admin account. It's ridiculous that they're still doing this. Anyway, let's see if there's more questions here. The forms, yeah, you get the forms in by then if you're in 197 or 198, and if you get them in later, you'll get an incomplete. All right, and so OpenAI has had a lot of turmoil. As you probably know, about 3-4 months ago, they pushed the CEO out, Sam Altman, and every engineer said they were going to quit if they pushed him out. So about 3 days later, Microsoft managed to pressure him into putting the CEO back in charge, and some people left then. But in the last couple of weeks, several of their top executives already left again. So there seems to be yet another bickering at the top of OpenAI. Now, OpenAI is responsible for ChatGPT and for all the Microsoft products like Microsoft Copilot. So they have the most advanced, most important AI, but they do seem to be completely insane. The fundamental, they have chants where they chant, feel the AGI, feel the AGI, and their official company goal is that they're going to create AGI, artificial intelligence smarter than a human, like in the movies, and they expect that to happen really soon, like in a year or two. They're always talking about this. Now, this is complete garbage. I don't see any chance of that happening, and neither does Gartner, somebody more authoritative than me. But anyway, apparently Sutskever, who's one of the top executives that left OpenAI, has now started a company just for this. And he's already raised $1 billion claiming that he is going to develop safe AGI within a couple years, which is complete garbage. This is total snake oil, in my opinion, just like Elizabeth Holmes, who pretended that she could do a blood test from just one drop of blood and got huge investment and ended up going to prison for many years, showing that she knew the product was garbage and wasn't going to work, and she took tons of investment money anyway. And this seems like almost as self-evident a fraud to me. But anyway, he did raise $1 billion. A bunch of people are betting on this. There's a whole lot of loose money in America, and you can just tell people any lie and they'll throw a pile of money at you. And a lot of people believe we're headed for AGI, which would be very, very crazy if it happened. But I think there's no chance of it happening anytime soon. So this is pretty amusing. If you ask Alexa, Amazon's smart speaker, what it thinks of Donald Trump, it'll say, I can't talk about that. If you ask about Biden, it'll say, I don't want to talk about that. But if you ask it about Kamala, it will tell you there are many great reasons to vote for Kamala Harris, and then list them all. She has a plan to address racial injustice and stuff. And so the Trump people complained about this and said, hey, your smart speaker is taking a political position against us. And when, of course, Amazon wanted to avoid this, so they're trying to say it was just some mistake, and they aren't explaining what happened here, but an error that was quickly fixed. So I think that's pretty amusing. I mean, a company might take a political position, but of course, a publicly traded company should not be taking a political position. It is unwise and not in the best interest of shareholders because Trump might win. Right now, the election looks 50-50. So the wisest policy for any company, I think, that can possibly avoid taking a political side is to avoid taking sides and just try to stay out of it until they find out who wins. MasterCard wants to get rid of card numbers for online shopping. They want to use tokens instead, and they're piloting it in India. So we'll see. They've been talking about this kind of thing for years in various forms. This is what Apple Pay does. And so you'll generate tokens and use tokens to buy things so they can't be reused, and so you aren't exposing your credit card number all the time. They think this will replace security measures like passwords with biometric data. So they're trying to do something about credit card fraud, and we'll see. It may work out. All right, so this thing in Columbus keeps going on and on. Columbus got ransomwared, or hacked, and some of their data was stolen and published on a underground leak site. And the mayor of Columbus tried to say they weren't hacked, they didn't steal anything, there's nothing to worry about. And an independent security researcher found the stolen data, downloaded it, and said, no, this is important data and you're lying about the extent of the hack. And then he went through and analyzed how the attack happened and said it was 100% preventable. And so they legally attacked him and got a temporary restraining order ordering him to shut up. So it's interesting, and this is the kind of thing white hatters tend to get into. You find a security problem, and you have some kind of simple-minded, idealistic idea that people are lying about it or they're not doing the right thing, and then you go making a public case about it. I've been this guy, and I've come to have a more cautious attitude about this as I become more in a position of authority and responsibility myself. It's easy to criticize the responsible, authoritative people. I think being more gentle and more friendly about it and more cautious in your statements is much more likely to succeed, and this is kind of the big message of the CISSP class. This is the wrong way to approach authority figures, by insulting them, saying they're wrong, saying they're criminals, saying they're lying. Even if all that is true, just directly attacking them is not the best way to influence them and to make things better. So this guy is making mistakes that he wouldn't if he had proper CISSP training, in my opinion. And so there's a supply chain attack on 22,000 PyPI packages, and this is the main repository of Python packages that you download. And it seems to me that this repository is built very stupidly, because what happens is, if you have a Python package and you put it up there, everybody can use it. If you get tired of it and you decide to take it down, as soon as you take it down, it immediately becomes available for anybody else to use that name. So people just wait for this and then jump on it and put up malware, and people think it's still up there because how would they know you took it down? And they download it. It seems to me like if I was running this PyPI repository, I would just say that when you stop putting out a repository, nobody else can use that name for like a year or maybe ever. That would seem like the obvious solution, but that's not what happens. And in fact, what's happening is a group of security people who have done things to stop this sort of thing before, JFrog, a software supply chain platform, is now putting up empty repositories as for all these ones that get taken down to block it. So they're adding the security feature that I think the PyPI people should have put in there in the first place. But anyway, this is one of the many ways of sneaking malware onto a system, is by putting up something that a developer will mistake for a legitimate package. It's related to typo squatting, essentially the same kind of attack. Anyway, I'm going to stop this.